everyone. Today I am 9 years sober. If you don't know this, prior to starting my YouTube channel, I had a period of time from about December 2012 until June 2016 where I struggled deeply with addiction, specifically alcoholism, where my coping mechanism for stress, trauma, tragedy was alcohol. And in December 2012, things got wildly out of control, and they stayed that way until I sought help on June 5th of 2016, 9 years ago. And what that means in a grander context of this YouTube channel, when I started this YouTube channel, I was unemployed because prior to that, I had been a youth pastor. And the thing that I needed to do to get the help that I needed was to come open, public, clean about my struggle and addiction, which meant that I had to resign from my position at the church to seek the help that I needed. And so I started this YouTube channel unemployed and while in an intensive outpatient treatment program that I was in for several months. I never went to an inpatient place where you live there. It was always outpatient. And it was several days a week for 3 hours at nighttime seeking treatment for alcoholism. And even the reason that I was able to grow my YouTube channel during the first 2 years is because I was severely underemployed. That the job I had after working at a church was delivering paint. I graduated from college. I led teams, organized staffs, did business plans, wrote sermons, worked with teenagers, volunteers, all of these very advanced skill sets. And then I had a job for 2 years where I was delivering paint. And essentially it's because I could pick buckets up and pass a drug test. I had a job delivering paint. And that's because my resume was entirely working in church world, and both because I needed to seek help for myself, as well as because I did not feel I was at a place where I should be working at a church. My resume was not helpful. So the one job that I was able to get was delivering paint. But what that meant was, at the end of every workday of carrying buckets, I wanted to do something with my mind. And that was this YouTube channel. In a certain sense, this YouTube channel was part of my recovery. It was part of me channeling my energy somewhere as I was rebuilding my life. So in that regards, thank you for helping keep me sober. And 9 years later, by the grace of God, because of a great family that supported me, because of a great faith community, the church that I'm at, I've been 9 years without any setbacks, lapses, relapses, slip-ups, anything. Like when I say I'm 9 years sober, I mean that. I have not had a beer. I've not had anything besides cough syrup that has a small amount of alcohol in it, but that was for coughing, not for other purposes. And like I said, that isn't because I'm such a great guy. That's because I believe in a powerful God, and I'm plugged into a community that's been incredibly supportive for me. Past years, I've told kind of the more detailed version of kind of my struggle with alcohol, and I don't necessarily want to do that now, except to say that I grew up in a home with an alcoholic father. There was a certain amount of abuse in the household. I didn't realize it as a kid, but as I grew older, I realized if someone else told me this, I would interpret it as an act of abuse. And therefore, I grew up in an abusive home. I didn't realize that growing up. And my dad drank himself to death when I was 20. And I'd never had a drink of alcohol up to that point in time because alcohol in my life growing up had been something tied to a dysfunctional father. He was very successful at work and business and an intelligent man, very liked by the people around him, but at home, he was an alcoholic. And that's what alcohol meant to me. But not too long after he passed away, because of an incident that happened, alcohol ended up turning into my coping mechanism for stress. And I kind of started to believe a lie that if the day's bad enough, it's okay to do this thing I know I probably shouldn't do. I know I probably have alcoholic genes. I saw what happened to my father, but today was really bad, so it's okay. And that became a pattern that stuck in my life for, I guess that would have been about 14 years. And for the first 10 of those 14 years, I kept it under control of like, I'd space it out. I go, I know I probably have alcoholic genes, so I shouldn't drink on a regular basis. But if something bad happens, when I'd been married for 51 weeks, 1 week shy of my 1 year anniversary, my wife and I got robbed. Our apartment got cleaned out. That was a good excuse to drink in my mind. That was my excuse. And I kept playing that game in my mind and got a job at a church, the church that I worked at, that I mentioned that I resigned from, and that I'm still at. To be very clear, I'm still at the church. And they, working in church world is very stressful because you are surrounded by people that you love and care about. And everything burden that they carry ends up, as a pastor, you know about it. And so you carry those burdens, and different people have a different capacity to do that. And one thing I learned about myself through experience is that my capacity to carry other people's burdens is not particularly high. Because I care. And it's exactly that. Like when you know everything about everyone, you don't want to know everything about everyone because it hurts. And my coping mechanism related to that. And there's also some church drama, some just the way some things played out. And there's a window of time in the church that was just an unusually large amount of tragedy, starting off in December 2012, where there was a teenage suicide. And I was an on the spot at the high school counselor. And then a few months later, one of my students that was in my small group also committed suicide. And there's just other things going on where there's a little bit too, like I had too many responsibilities at the church, and with where we're at, that's just kind of what needed to happen. And so I was over a student ministry that was growing. I was the backup preacher. I was over communication, and they kind of gave me more things and more while a bunch of tragedy happened. And it was kind of the perfect storm for someone that was teetering on the edge of alcoholism to kind of collapse in on it. And that's what happened, that just the stress, the suicides in a small window of time just led me very quickly losing control. And with alcoholic genes, without any restraint, it turned into, it's not that I need to drink to get through today. It's I can't stop drinking. What do I do? And unfortunately, this overlaps with when Liam was under a year old and when Chloe was born. That I don't like to look at pictures of myself from the first few years of them being alive, because almost always I can see the alcohol in my eyes. I can see that I'm not all there. Or even if it just reminds me of a phase of my life where I was the worst version of myself when I needed to be the best version. And this went on for 4 years, and I tried to fix myself in private and keep it a secret to keep my job, because I then believed this lie. If this comes out, I'm a pastor. If this comes out, my life will be over. My career will be over. My reputation will be shot. I don't know what I'll do. I don't know how I would make it through that, because I've dug such a deep hole for myself. And that's the lie that most people believe when they're in the middle of their struggles, that their life will be over if they come clean, if they seek help. The embarrassment, the shame, the pain of recovery, you're afraid of that. All of this came to a head on June 5th. It was during an event at our church called Boot Camp. It's like training the teenagers to do Bible clubs. It's like the biggest week of the year for the youth ministry, and we're in the middle of it. And I'd had like a pretty bad like run with alcohol leading up to that week. And so I was just kind of like out of my mind in withdrawal going into the weekend or going into the week. And there's all this stuff. Something was clearly very wrong with me. And someone confronted me about it. And I kind of reached my point where it's like, I can't live this lie anymore. And in the middle of that week, because I couldn't, basically the guy sent me home from my own, I'm over the trip, and he sent me home because like, what if something's wrong with you? You got to go home. So I went home, and then my wife, who knew a lot of, but didn't know necessarily that moment how bad things were, told her, like, I got sent home because I was acting weird, because I'm in withdrawal from alcohol, because I'm so whacked out from the last few days. And basically said a series of moments where the very next, in the middle of the night, like literally 6 a.m, I sent an email to the elder board resigning from the church saying I need to seek help. And this is what's been going on. Here's what I've been hiding. And it was as painful as you'd imagine. It was as like hurtful to the people around me as you can imagine. It was as disruptive. The middle of the biggest week, the youth pastor disappears. Middle of the summer, all the busy time, where all the stuff's coming in, the youth pastor disappears to get treatment. It's like the weight of all of that, I had to carry all of that. But the reason I couldn't fix myself over the last few years is because we're not meant to fix ourselves. We're not meant to resolve our personal struggles, our sin issues on our own. As a youth pastor, that's what I taught all the time, that we are saved by faith through grace, or grace through faith. And that it's what every single week, it was about, you can't fix yourself and you don't do it in secret. We're meant to live in community, and we are saved by the blood of Jesus. But I'd been trying to fix myself in secret. People ask me all the time, every time I share my story, people ask for my advice. And there are little things you can do, like don't have access to the temptation, don't have access to money and things like, of course that'll help. But at the end of the day, I don't attribute the reason I found 9 years of sobriety to a little trick. I don't attribute it to I took all money out of my wallet and gave it to my wife for a long period of time. That helped a piece of it, but at the core of it, it's that I surrendered. And it says in James, God opposes the proud and he gives grace to the humble. And reached a moment in my life where I went, I have spent years, and my pride has told me that if I come clean, I'll look bad, I'll lose my job, I won't be able to provide for my family. What will this do? I'm holding this whole thing together. It was all about me and my pride. So I got to fix myself, which is pride. God opposes the proud, and he gives grace to the humble. And I reached a moment in time where I said, I care more about being healthy than looking healthy. So in that moment, all of a sudden, that's a moment of humility. God gives grace to the humble. And I told my wife, whatever you want me to do, I'm going to do. We went to the elder board at the church, and we said, the leadership of the church, the pastor and everything, and went, all right, whatever you want us to do, we're going to do. If you want us to leave, we'll leave. If you want us to stay, we'll stay. Whatever you do, whatever you say is what we will do, as per what you think will help be healthy for me and healthy for the church. And 9 years later, I'm still at the same church. And they paid for all my recovery and several months of pay afterwards so that until I was able to get the job delivering paint and everything like that. We're still there. Like, my son is in the youth ministry that I used to run. And actually now both my two oldest kids are. Chloe just joined it too. Literally her first youth event was last night. And more importantly, and this is actually extraordinarily huge for me, I'm speaking at that boot camp next week. The exact event where my life imploded 9 years ago. That, like, the amount of chaos caused by me disappearing based on my own choices, they asked me to speak at it next week as the nighttime speaker at the event. That's the grace of God. That's forgiveness. That's healing. That's reconciliation. There's so many stories in church world where someone fails morally and they're kicked out and they're gone. And you can find there's no shortage of people that say, I did this thing wrong. And they came forward, they got caught. And instead of getting grace from their church, they got condemnation. Now, of course, there's accountability. Of course, there's consequences. I did not have a job anymore and very much lived with consequences. But there should also be grace in the story. It's both sides to it. There's consequences, but there's love and there's grace. And church so often gets that wrong. Not to say that my church, the last 9 years has been complicated. There have been many hard conversations, many things, because there's a lot that went on 10 years ago that led into my own issues with the way things played out. But we were all directionally heading in the same direction. And next week at the event, of all the places that you would not want the guy that messed things up to be at, they asked me to speak at it. And if you're not outside of my church, you couldn't even understand how much this actually means to me on a personal level. There's so much more backstory that I can't really even share as to how much it actually means to me. But that's what grace looks like. And this goes back to the lie. Lie was, if I come clean, my life will be over. If I come clean, my ministry will be over. And I will never get to I'll be thrown out, whatever. My son will be at this event next week. My son, who was 4 years old when everything imploded, will be at this event next week. And I'll be teaching him at this event that for me means so much. which is also tied to the most hurtful and painful and shameful moments of my life. And I was asked to speak at it. Because your life's not over when you come clean. That's when reconciliation and healing begins. When you're in the middle of addiction, struggle, the secrets and everything like that, that's when you're in prison. And you don't even realize it. That's where all life is lost, all freedom is lost, and you're completely shackled to secrets, to the shame, to the addiction, to the sin, whatever you want to call it, whichever you want to go with it, you're stuck to it. And the freedom comes through confession. Now, obviously, I'm a Christian, and so my version, I believe that healing, forgiveness, salvation comes through the cross. If you're not a believer, I would certainly point you in the direction to seek, talk to a pastor at a church and what that looks like more specifically of confession of sins and turning to Jesus for forgiveness. But even in the simplest practical senses, sin grows in secrets. If you have your sin as a secret, if your addiction is a secret, it just only grows. Sin grows in secrets. Everything in the dark grows. The bad stuff grows in the dark. And you shine a light on it. That's when you can start fighting it back. And I was a pastor. The idea of being afraid of that coming to light, it wasn't just the embarrassment, which my whole career was built on my reputation, which I had to burn to get healing, but also my paying the bills of my family of 4. My bills were paid by being a guy with a good reputation. The fear of consequences of coming clean, that's all I had. But if the other part of this is that God is good and God wants the best for, that part of my worldview, that I'm not actually the one holding it all together. I need to be responsible with my life, but I'm not the one holding it all together. God is. And do I trust him that if I come clean, he still wants the best for me? Well, he wants me to come clean. That's part of what the whole message of the gospel is, confession of sin. He wants me to do that, so will that actually lead to the worst for me? Well, no. If you're in the middle of whatever you're dealing with, God opposes the proud and he gives grace to the humble. I know you're afraid to come. I get it, and I felt the pain of the restoration. It was brutal. And I still carry the hurt on a daily basis as I'm reminded of the horrible choices that I made. Even as I look at pictures of my young kids, I'm reminded of the choices that I made. But I'm not stuck in it anymore, and I haven't been for 9 years, by the grace of God. You're not defined by the mistakes you've made. You don't have to be defined by what you're doing now. But if you choose to live in the secrets, you kind of are. Seek the help that you need. Confess your sins. Community makes all the difference. Being in a healthy community that is helping you makes all the difference. But I was deep in a world of addiction where I had no control. And when I came clean to my community and owned what was going on and humbly submitted myself in pursuit of getting healthy, not looking healthy, but getting healthy, that's when my life changed. 9 years without slip up, relapse, lapse, anything like that. That's not because I'm awesome, because I failed at trying to fix myself for 4 years. And really even longer than I failed at controlling my urges. It was by the grace of God. By grace, through faith, there's healing. There is hope. You're not defined by your biggest mistakes, and you can be restored. A little bit different video for today, but it's so pivotal in the history even of this YouTube channel, that this YouTube channel came out of my time where I was healing and rebuilding my life. And even to that point, I haven't even mentioned this in here, I kind of have a dream career now. I work for myself watching movies on the internet. Go to career day. Kids are excited because I'm a YouTuber. I'm excited because I'm a film critic. I get to see movies early for free. It's cool. All of this came out of the hardest window of time in my life, and it came out of humility. I thought my life would be over, and now I have a dream job, and even my ministry. I'm speaking at the event where my life imploded. That's the grace of God. It says in Ephesians 3:20, to him who is able to do immeasurably more than we could ask or imagine. I had a lot of big prayers in June of 2016. And over the last 9 years, he has done immeasurably more than I could ask or imagine. And if you don't even know this, the reason that our third child is named Charis is Greek for grace. And we view her as our grace baby. That coming out of this very hard period in our life, things were starting to look better. YouTube was taking off. My wife's career was taking off. And then we found out we were pregnant. And this was all in a span of just a very few months that we found out we were pregnant with Charis at the same time that both of our careers were taking off. And it was like, I think we're going to be okay. What should we name this baby? And my wife said she'd always liked the name Charis. And we both went to Bible college and knew that it's Greek origins. And we went, it's like our grace baby. That's who Charis is. She's kind of the symbol of our life's, like our second chance, or my second chance. My wife wasn't part of my mistakes, but like the awesome life that we've had over these years, and we have our little grace baby to signify it. So there is hope, but it comes from humility, and that's where freedom comes from.